Hey, my name is Paul Black with Black CPA Review. Now, this is the first video blog we've done for the company, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on the company and who I am, okay? So my name is Paul Black, like I said. I'm a CPA. Now, when I took my exams, I found the study material that was out there really didn't give you as much as it should have for what it cost. You know, you get the video and you can get a book, and you're going to pay $1,700 for it. It just seemed excessive to me. You didn't get, any of the extras. You didn't get the audio reviews. You didn't get flashcards. You didn't get any study aids. You didn't get any real help other than the video. So what I decided was, after I went out and I got some experience, I decided that really my passion was helping people pass the CPA exam. Not sitting behind a desk crunching numbers, auditing, things like that. I decided I wanted to teach. So what I did was I put together the CPA review package with a team of expert curriculum specialists from different universities around, and really developed what I feel like is the best CPA review package around. What we have is we've got instructional videos, about 125 hours of instructional videos. We have comprehensive outlines. Now, these outlines are going to be about, I think FAR was about 400 pages of outlines, so it's really comprehensive. It really shows you exactly what you need to know to pass the exam. It doesn't give you any superfluous information, it doesn't give you more information than you need to know. It really gives you exactly, step by step, what you need to know to pass the exam. It clearly defines everything you need. So we've got the great outlines, we've got the video to go with it. Now, that's where most CPA exam review companies stop. But what we've done is we've also included an audio package, basically giving you an audio tool you can listen to in the car, on a jog, in the gym, anytime. You can use it to read along with your outlines. So that really helps your auditory learners. I know a lot of people out there aren't visual learners, aren't kinesthetic learners. They need to hear it. So this gives another option for somebody who just needs to hear the material. Okay, and it lets you fill in the gap time driving to work. That could be 45 minutes of quality study time that people miss out on if they don't have an audio review. So we've included the audio review in our package. We've also included flashcards. Now, it's helpful to make your own flashcards, but we've given you a basis. So I think for regulations and FAR, we have 400 note cards. I think regulations, we got 300. Back in auditing, I think each have about 300 as well. So we've got a ton of note cards for you to go through, and it'll help you memorize, help hammer home those concepts and those definitions to help you with rapid recall on the exam. So we've wrapped that all into one package for each exam at a very competitive price, and we're going to offer it both online, meaning that you can stream the videos, download the MP3 audios, print the outlines, print the note cards, and it's all there instantly for you. We've also got our hard copy package, which means that we're going to send you the books printed out. We're going to send DVDs and CDs with material. We're going to give you flashcards printed out and boxed for you, all at your doorstep. So, you have the two options: online package, hard copy, and you can buy each test individually, or you can buy the complete package with all 4 exams included. So that being said, that's just a little bit of background on the company, what we're about. We're about providing you with quality, effective material at a reasonable price. So that's what we're about. Now, so these video blogs, and we're probably going to post them about twice a week, and I'm going to be answering your questions we get at Black CPA Review about the CPA exam. So just general tips, things people are worried about on exam day. More specific questions. If somebody has trouble with a specific CPA exam question, we'll throw it up on the board here and do it for you guys. Even though that's part of our review package, we do questions on the board. I'll go ahead and do some in our video blogs, sort of do some explaining, go over some of the more difficult concepts with you guys. But to start that off, I think it's going to be a good idea to do a series just giving you a snapshot of each one of the exams. So today we're going to start with regulations. I'm just going to tell you format, general content, and some study tips specific to regulations, okay? So here's the deal. The format here is that this exam, regulations, is 3 hours long. It's one of the shorter exams. Balck is 3 hours, audit is 4 hours, and FAR is 4 hours. So regulations is one of the shorter ones at 3 hours. That being said, it only has 24 questions per testlet. There are 3 testlets at 24 questions, meaning that there are 72 total questions. Now, 12 of these are what are known as pre-test questions. The AICPA likes to do some research on their exam questions before they actually make them count. So they've included 12 questions, so 4 per testlet, of questions that don't actually count towards your final score. But it gives the CPA, the AICPA, an idea of how hard the question is, how long it's taking people to answer the questions, so that they can determine the value point-wise of that question in the future. So that being said, I'll explain that regulations is what's known as a progressive exam. So your first testlet of multiple choice questions are of medium difficulty. Now, testlet number 2, the questions are based on how well you did on your first testlet. If you did really well on your first testlet, testlet number 2 is going to be harder. The questions get harder. That being said, they're worth more points. So you have to get fewer right to pass. And again, testlet number 3 is based on how well you did on number 2. So if you did really well on 1, didn't do as good on testlet 2, testlet 3 will be a little bit easier. Okay? And this is also an exam where you're basically racking up points. You don't start at 100 and they deduct points for questions you get wrong. They start at 0 and they add points for questions you get right. So never leave an exam question blank. Even if you get it wrong, it doesn't count against you. You might get lucky, guess it right, and get some extra points towards passing. So easier questions are worth fewer points. Harder questions are worth more points. So if your exam is getting harder, don't panic. That actually might be a good thing. For every question you get right, you're closer to passing. If you get a question wrong, it doesn't count against you. If the exam's getting harder, it means you probably did better on your first testlet. So don't panic. Don't worry too much. If it's harder, it's actually okay. All right. So we've said that there are 24 multiple choice questions per testlet, 72 total questions. There are also 6 task-based simulations. Now, what these task-based simulations are here to do is not just test your concept knowledge, but make sure you actually know how to apply those concepts and perform a task. So it may ask you to do journal entries, find present value. It may ask you to actually generate something like a cash flow statement. So rather than just demonstrating that you have conceptual knowledge, it shows that you know how to actually perform the task. Before, I think it was 2011, before 2011, there were 2 or 3 simulations. They were long, they were grueling, and they were hard. These task-based simulations are shorter. They test a wider range of knowledge, and they are still difficult. I think this may be one of the areas that people tend to lose the most points on because they're not prepared for them. One of the things people do is they study multiple choice a lot, and they kind of forget about task-based simulations. With our review course, we give you 100 task-based simulations so that you are prepared for each test. So that being said, 60% of your exam score comes from your multiple choice questions. So that's a big chunk. It's the biggest chunk. But 40% comes from your task-based simulations. So you can't neglect the task-based simulations. And it really does take practice to get good at it. So you've got to really study simulations if you want to pass and get a good score. Now, when I say good score, a 75 is passing. A 75 is a good score. No one's going to ask you what you got. No employers are going to say, you know, you don't have to put it on your resume. So a 75 is a 75. You don't really need to study any more than that. So do multiple choice and do task-based simulations. Don't neglect task-based simulations. Now, part of task-based simulations are research questions. It'll give you a question. You'll have to go to a research database included in your exam, and you'll have to research a specific concept, a topic. You'll come back. You may have to actually answer a question based on what you researched, and you'll have to put where you found that. It'll give you like a section and a page number that you'll have to enter in. Research questions are worth the fewest amount of points and can oftentimes take up the most amount of time. Do the research questions last. When you're on your task-based simulations, leave that one for last. If you don't have time, if you run out of time, not that big of a deal. It's worth the fewest amount of points. You can easily still pass without answering it. So don't stress if you don't answer the research question, okay? And then generally one of those task-based simulations is pre-test, okay? All right, so we've gone over the format. It's 3 hours for regulations, 72 multiple choice questions, 6 task-based simulations, okay? Let's talk a little bit about pass rates. Now, this is something that kind of freaks people out. All right, so we've got regulations here. Now, regulations, in my opinion, is one of the more difficult exams. So we've got we've got our 2011 pass rate. Now, in 2011, regulations had a 44.22% pass rate, cumulative throughout the entire year. For 2012, now granted we've only had one quarter so far, 2012, so I really could do a quarter-over-quarter comparison, but I'm going to do year, okay? Regulations pass rate was 45%, okay? So, with the new standards, the new codifications, the new test coming out in 2012, it's gotten a little bit easier. Not much easier, but a little bit easier. But what I want to point out about this is that in 2011, regulations was the worst exam. It had the lowest pass rate at 44.22%. It was the hardest exam for people to pass. Okay? In 2012, second easiest, second highest pass rate at 45%. Beck had the best with 48%, and FAR had the lowest with 43.84%. So what I want to say is that with the changes being made to the exam, the regulations exam has gotten a little bit easier. It's moved from last place to second place, okay? So take some comfort in knowing that this exam got a little bit easier. Not much easier, a little bit. But that being said, these are still fairly low pass rates. Less than 50% of the people pass regulations. Less than 50% of people pass any of the exams. What did I say? For 2012, Beck had the highest with 48.63%. Less than 50% of people pass their exam. Why? They don't spend enough time reviewing. They review out-of-date material, or they don't even have a review course at all. That being said, get a strong review course. If you don't want to take, if you don't want to have to retake it, spend double the amount of time, invest in a good review course. It's worth it, trust me. I tried, when I first took the exams, I didn't use a review course. The only one I passed the first time around, well, I took Beck without a review course and passed it. I took regulations without a review course. I didn't pass it, which I immediately went out and bought a review course. I decided I don't want to have to do this twice for every exam. So it was kind of a wake-up call. So that being said, get a good review course. It'll save you time and money. As soon as you get your CPA license, a lot of doors open up. You make more money, so you don't want to double the amount of time you're spending trying to pass these things. Pass them as soon as possible. All right? So pass the exam quickly by using a good review course. Use one that's up to date. I've had friends that have gone out and bought review courses off of eBay. They might be 2 or 3 years old, and they don't pass. They spend 100 hours studying for one exam, and they don't pass because they're using out-of-date material. This stuff gets updated constantly, and that's what I do on a constant daily basis. I look at new accounting pronouncements and figure out how to teach them to you so that you're up to date. Okay. So, we looked at our pass rates. Not great, but it's still second highest for 2012. Got a little bit easier. So let's look at what the topics that are covered under regulations. Well, obviously under regulations, you're going to have tax. All right, so we got federal tax. Now, this is federal tax, not state tax. You don't need to know state tax for your exam, just federal tax. We're going to go over ethics, professional and legal responsibilities. Okay, So you're going to go over professional and legal responsibilities. All right. So, what are the board of directors responsible for? What are CPAs in general responsible for? What are our code of ethics? That's going to be on the exam. Okay? We're going to go over business law. Now, in order to take this exam, you have to have had 2 classes of business law. So this should be a review for you. It's not too in-depth. It's pretty general business law. But it does give some people a little bit of trouble, especially when you're looking at common law versus UCC law. You're going to have to know the distinction. So it is something you need to review. All right. And then, just the general skills required for tax and business law. So it'll ask you to apply your tax knowledge to different concepts. All right. So that's what's covered. Reg, we've got the tax and we've got the business law and legal and professional responsibilities. Tax can be broken down to individual taxation, corporate taxation, estates and trust taxation, partnership taxation. Taxation is a big, big section. It comprises most of the exam, and there's a lot of concepts in there. It's tough. Regulations is tough because there's so much memorization that you have to do. All right. So what are some tips? All right. Tips specific for regulations. So regulations really has a long questions, often in paragraph form, giving you a ton of information, right? Best thing to do, in my opinion, read the last line. Figure out what the question is asking before you read the whole thing. So figure out the question's asking. Call it the stem. What's the meat of the question? Once you figure out what the question's asking, go through and read the entire question and pick out the facts that you need to answer the question, right? So figure out the question is first, then read the facts. All right. So basically by reading the question first, then the facts, you're going to speed up your time, and you're going to increase the chance that you're picking out the correct information to answer the question. All right. When studying for regulations, it actually is really imperative that you take breaks. I know that's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of people taking the CPA exam. Accountants and CPAs are generally pretty driven, really motivated. They want to spend as much time possible studying. Here's the deal. Regulations is intense to study for. After about 3 hours of constant task studying, the brain stops to sort of process what you're learning. You have a diminishing return. The longer you study, the less you're going to remember. Okay? So you need to take breaks. It's important. It helps your retention and it helps your recall. So take breaks. And it's especially important for regulations, which is very concept, memorization heavy. Okay. Now here's the deal. Most candidates spend between 90 and 160 hours studying for regulation. It's a big window. 160 to 90, somewhere around there. 90 to 160 hours. It's a big range. Here's the deal. Some people taking the exam have finished up a master's degree. In tax, maybe, they don't need to study for as long. Some people are just getting out of college, getting their bachelor's degree. Maybe you're in a state that only requires 120 credit hours to take the exam. You've had maybe 2 classes of tax. You need to spend quite a bit more time preparing. So, in general, I would say 90 hours if you're pretty tax experienced, 160 hours if you have no clue what you're doing, okay? So if you have no idea about any tax concepts, you're coming into this, maybe you've been in the industry for 15 years, but you've been doing, financial accounting. And you're looking at tax now, first time you've looked at tax in 15 years, you're going to need a bit more time. This is one of the most intense tests to study for, in my opinion. So 160 hours at max. All right. So the key for regulations, multiple choice, multiple choice, multiple choice. I think for every 1 hour of video lecture or audio review, you need about 3 hours of multiple choice and task-based simulation review. So for every hour of new material you're learning, you need 3 hours of answering questions. That way, when you get to the exam, nothing looks new, nothing's unfamiliar. You can really breeze through it and not be too stressed. All right. And then just another idea when taking your CPA exams. After you review a concept, say you've just gone over individual taxation, you need to do multiple choice for that right away. Don't wait. Some people would say, you want to wait and so you can see what you remember and what you don't. No, do the multiple choice right away. That way you really hammer home those concepts. It helps you to remember those concepts that you just went over. Now, after you've done the multiple choice the first time for that concept you just learned, give it some time and then go back and review those multiple choice. Do them again. Give yourself a week or two and then hammer them again. That way, you get the first review to hammer home the initial concepts, and then you wait a week or two and you can see what you remember versus what you don't, and it'll help you go back and review. So, my advice, as soon as you've studied a concept, do multiple choice for it. Then give it some time, do the multiple choice again. It just gives you better odds of knowing what you need to go back and review, figuring out what you don't know as well. So that's regulations in a nutshell. I think even though it has the second highest pass rate in 2012, I think it's still one of the hardest. It's just very concept driven, very memorization heavy, which is unfortunate. It's hard to study for. But it's definitely doable. Get a good review program, put the time in, and you're going to do great. That being said, if you need a review program, check out Balck CPA Review. We put a lot of work into providing you with a very good, comprehensive review, giving you everything you need, the audio, the video, the flashcards, everything. That being said, if you have any questions, CPA questions at all, leave some comments. I'll come back and answer it in the comments section. I'll do some video blogs answering your questions and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about regulations, just a quick snapshot. And next review, I think we're going to go ahead and do FAR.